Hello, everyone. Welcome to Soulprism Podcast, where we share bite sized nuggets of wisdom for your body, mind, and soul to serve you, the emerging soulpreneur. My name is Tammy Mack, and I'm really excited today. Today, we have Anna Kinney, and she's here to help women who are on a spiritual journey and ready to break free from the subconscious conditioning of the toxic patriarchy to write a new story for themselves and step into defined purpose as a creator and guide in the new paradigm. Welcome, Anna.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm always so excited to join in these beautiful discussions.
Yes, I'm really excited about this. I'm excited because here's a little secret. We're actually creating two podcasts in one. So this is a true man gen and projector energy. It's like, how can we work smarter and not harder? How can we become more efficient? And so this is going to be a really fun experiment that we're working on, creating two different podcasts in one session. So, Anna, tell us a little bit about human design and your journey through human design.
Okay. Well, I am approaching my 5th year anniversary of having begun my experiment. It'll be 5 years in August. It came to me through a friend who had witnessed me go through a very typical fifth line experience of being burned at the stake. And she reached out to me afterwards and she was like, "Hey, I heard about what happened. So sorry. And I have this tool, human design. I think it might help you. And I feel like you would be receptive to it." She knew I was like, I'm a musician, I'm an artist, I'm kind of in the like hippie scene. I don't know like calling it hippie anymore, but like the crunchy boho music loving free spirited types. So she came over to my house a couple days after my birthday and we talked for 3 hours. 3 hours we sat there, and now having been, in the human design world and given a fair amount of readings, I now understand how we sat there for 3 hours, because I have sat with with people for multiple hours just shooting things back and forth and looking at the chart and helping people understand some things. So the three main things that really that I remembered and that really stood out to me was being a manifesting generator, that making a lot of sense, mainly like a lot of the shadow parts of it making a lot of sense for why, like, I have had a hard time committing to things in the past. Even though my son is the gate of commitment, it's been more of a thing where throughout my childhood I would choose things and then not want to do them and then be forced to continue to do them because of the sunken investment, to where as I became an adult, I now like I would then became like kind of gun shy to even commit to anything because I had this pattern of like failing to follow through all the way, and I didn't want to. And just about everything in life costs money or time or energy, and these are investments, right, that we have, a seemingly limited amount, even though technically none of them are actually limited. Um, but yeah, I just had a hard time choosing a path, and I didn't have the perspective for a long time that like that actually is the path, is this very spiralic thing. And it's so cool to reflect. I'm 40 years old. I just turned 40 this year, and to reflect back on all the different things that I have done and to see things like music coming back around, or it's spiraled in and out of my life several times now, where I've had periods of time where I didn't play music, I didn't sing anything. Maybe I dated musicians, but like never actually created myself. And then something would spark me and I would dive back into it again, and then I'd fall away from it again. I feel like that also cycles with my emotional wave and all these different things. And it's been cool to look back, and one of my mantras when it comes to being a Manny Gen is um that everything is unfolding. Everything is unfolding. It's all unfolding. Everything's unfolding. And I have to I have to tell myself that a lot. And I have lots of time because that's a constant. I feel that with my open route a lot too, is that like I feel like I'm always running out of time, or that like I can move faster, but I can't because of the nature of living in the 3D reality. Everything's really slow and I'm trying to go faster. So being a Manny Gen really resonated a lot. I love being a Manny Gen. I've looked at my sidereal chart. In my sidereal chart, I'm a generator, but I still have the same emotional channel. And when I look at both, I'm like, I feel both of these. I'm just going to stick to this one, the tropical one, because it's the one that I'm still like trying to still get fully deconditioned and a good grip on. And then when I feel like I'm there, I'll move into the sidereal one. But I like being a Manny Gen. I love it. Um, and then learning about my fifth line in the especially in the context of what I had just gone through, that was like validation all day long around, okay, so it's not always me. Sometimes it is me. Sometimes it's also, I feel like my 59-6 wave, and I also have the gate 39. I think, when I feel like I'm just trying to be truthful, or I'm trying to be honest, or I'm just trying to be authentic. And I don't know, my aura just like shoves its way into other people's auras. I've been accused of being a bully before, and I honestly don't, that intention has never been there. But I feel like that 59-6, I think, can really puncture and penetrate, and just it pushes people. I feel like my aura just pushes people around even without any intention of that happening. And yeah, and the 5 line then comes in to be like, blame me for all of your stuff. So there's that. And then the journey with the 5 line has been really, really interesting. And I think it's easy to blame the 5 line for all the blame that we get, but I feel like e- leaning into alignment with strategy and authority has helped to clean the projection field more and more, to not commit and engage with things out of that sense of needing to prove my worth, or because I have the energy I should, like all the not self stuff. If I'm not operating from that, I tend to find I get fewer burned at the stake situations. They still happen, but I get fewer of those situations. And the invitations to save the day that are aligned, they're kind of rare. I feel like they don't come around as much. So it's just a lot of waiting and just following my sacral joy every day as much as I can, and just showing up and being in the right spaces with the right people, rather, because I value myself and they value who I am. And that's really important, really getting into boundary setting and really getting clear on what are healthy boundaries for me. And I don't know. Sometimes I try to communicate as clearly as possible and concisely as possible with people. And sometimes it doesn't matter how clearly I communicate. Sometimes it's at some point I gotta realize it's not me that's not getting it. So it's the 5 line is interesting. It's very interesting energy to grapple with. Um, and then third, my emotional wave. Learning about, like, hearing what my friend had to say about that in our reading was helpful. It's it took a back seat. Like, I spent the first year of my experiment really trying to understand what waiting to respond meant. Like, I'm like, wait, but what does this mean? Like trying to get my brain to understand my sacral was difficult. And then one day it just like I got it. Like I heard myself make the super excited noise. I feel like I spent a lot of that first year noticing more of the like not feeling good sacral feelings and sounds, but I was having a harder time really pinpointing, yeah, but what does it really feel like when I am super hell yes lit up? Like, yeah, I get these little like, yeah, that's good. Yeah, that's good. Yeah, that's cool. Like I get the little like yeahs, but what's the ooh, and I make that sound and I clap my hands when I know that's how I know something is like so exciting and so good. So when there was just, I don't remember exactly what it was for, but there was a day where I did that. And in the moment, I was like, that's it. That's it. And I sunk super hard into the present and I really just grabbed onto that feeling and I was like, okay, where am I feeling it in my body? I'm feeling it everywhere. I feel it. My hair is standing up. My stomach is like bubbling, not flip flopping with anxiety, but just that like bubbling excitement and feeling ready to move on it, feeling ready to go on it. So yeah, first year was really tuning into that feeling. Since then, I've been on a like almost 4-year journey of tracking my emotional wave with the 59.6. And the 59.6, it's big and it's long and it takes a lot, it's big. And I feel like when I read about it in the definitive book, this book, there's like 2 sentences about the 59.6 and it's like the source of all waves. I'm like, well, what the hell does that mean? And the graph, even the graph, like all the other waves have this like up and down or a spike and a drop and a spike. This one's just like meh. It didn't even have like the whole wave cycle graphed out in there. And I'm like, I'm like, what the heck is this about? So mm, anybody whose courses I've taken or material I've studied, none of them have the 59.6. And I feel like I have struggled to find teachers with this channel that really know how to talk about it. And so I had to just start collecting my own data. I cycle track my menstrual cycle, and so in those charts for a solid like year and a half I used these manual charts. I would write it down on this little circle piece of paper. I tracked it with the moon and I tracked my cycle, I tracked what I ate, and I tracked my emotions on there too. And I've done this with Mercury retrogrades. I've tracked like so I know which phase of Mercury retrograde tends to like hit me the most and things like that. So the 59.6, I came to realize I'm like, holy crow, it takes 6 months to a year for me to go through a full low, high, neutral cycle. And I've now had the past 3 low cycles. I've been able to really tune in and feel like a strong intuitive hit that it's coming. And I just get this. I've done a lot of like psychic mediumship, you know, work and working with a mentor and I've gotten these hits where it's just like, hey, you know how you're looking at your calendar 2 months from now? Clear it. Don't book anything extra. Just do what you got to do to pay your bills. Don't volunteer for anything. Don't don't sign up for any events. Like don't do anything that's going to take you away from being at home and just doing what you need to do to take care of yourself. And every time I'm like, okay. And I've been trusting it. And I'm like, I listen, I clear my schedule. And it has come almost at the same time every year. It's usually something in the spring and then something in the fall or like the early summer and late fall. And most recently I'm I think I've come out of it. I think I've come back out of it. Sometimes I'm a little gun shy to like be like, "Oh yeah, I'm out of my low," and then get hit with something else, but I just went through a cycle where I felt it. I knew in January I was gonna get a low because I launched my podcast in January. I put a lot of creative energy into it in November and December and January. And I got myself scheduled several months out so that all I would have to do is just make the posts and record my intro and throw it on there, and then it would be good. I had everything edited, I had everything scheduled up in Spotify and ready to go. And sure enough, early March, I felt the slow descent start to start to hit me. I'm like, okay. And I had a couple things scheduled. Co-hosted a retreat with a friend of mine in mid-March, and I had 3 EFT classes scheduled, and all of them wound up getting canceled because nobody signed up for them. Because I think part of it is because I didn't put hardly any energy into actually marketing them, and I tried, but my energy was not behind it. And yeah, we had one person signed up for one of them, and we wound up refunding them. So yeah, as soon as I felt that descent start coming after the retreat that I did, it was like the drop really, it started to accelerate down into that pit. And I try to explain when sometimes I have one or two friends in periods of life that are really close and we talk all the time and we're very much up in each other's business and know everything about what's going on. And when I feel that low coming, I try to explain to them like, "Hey, I just need to take a break because I'm feeling this low coming." And every other time I haven't taken a break with a friend and they're with me through the low, we wind up having some sort of misunderstanding, and then we're not friends anymore. And I just need space. And I keep trying to like explain this to people who aren't emotional, and they think like leave me alone for a day is enough. And I'm like, no, no, no. Like, don't call me. I'll call you like when I'm good. It might take a few weeks or a few months. Usually my lows last for about a month and a half. And then I kind of slowly start to come out of them. And then once I'm up, like kind of up here for, I wouldn't call it like a high. It just is my normal. My normal is just kind of like generally pretty good, pretty optimistic, feeling very hopeful about life and all those things. But when I go into that low, it's just like I get why people identify with calling it depression. um, and I want to say like clinical depression is a real thing, and I'm not saying it's not real, but it's really easy to think that that's what it is when it's just this low cycle of this really big wave. So just knowing all of that about it, and again reflecting on past periods of my life where I'm like, "Oh, that I think that was an emotional low." And I did not have the awareness around it. And I was doing a lot of drugs and alcohol. So, like, a lot of that got bypassed on my end. And now I'm really spending a lot of time practicing, just trying to feel it, trying to let it be there, getting better at knowing what I need to take care of myself in those times. And human design has really been just an incredible anchor and guidepost along the way, just to keep me reminded, keep me on track, as well as my husband, because he's just incredible at helping me remember the things that I'm always telling him about.
It's I just love listening to other people's experiences in how it is that they found human design, what they gained from it. Everybody's answers are always so very, very, very different. So much to unpack with what you were saying. So it's interesting that you brought up the sidereal or the cosmic human design. I actually had a session with Richard Mason, and we did my design. And in traditional human design, I'm a 6-2 splenic projector with one channel, so two centers defined. In cosmic, I am a 9-centered defined manifesting generator.
Wow.
Yeah. And so my guides were like, okay, we've always told you you're all the chart. Now you know. Now you know. But in the 3D world that we live in, right, we're all connected to the collective consciousness through the 3D, through the tropical design. I am very much a 6-2 splenic projector. And so, but just knowing that my God self truly is a 9-centered being, like just truly, truly is. The other thing I wanted to unpack was you mentioned gate 12. Is that correct? Did you mention gate 12? I
I did
think.
earlier when we were chatting. Yeah.
Oh, okay. I thought, well, we were talking. Oh, you were talking about melancholy and depression with your wave.
Yeah.
And that is very common for people also who have the gate 12.
Yeah.
I'm curious if you know offhand where your gate 12 is, like what planet is activating your gate 12?
Yeah, it's my north node on both conscious and
Yeah.
unconscious sides. And yeah, as I'm 40, approaching my Uranus opposition, for the last couple of years, I'm like, what is this gate 12 in my north node really about? Which is, it's Gemini. My south node is gate 11 in Sagittarius.
Well, and if
So
you think about it, Jupiter is entering in the same time that you're probably going to be having your Uranus opposition.
yes, it's probably gonna be conjunct my natal north node while it's gonna retrograde back, and then probably sometime next year would be my guess.
Yes, 2025. So
Yeah.
yeah, that's what I'm thinking too, because then you and I will both be experiencing a Jupiter, a new Jupiter cycle. Because I also have the gate 12. My gate 12 is actually my Jupiter.
Okay.
Oh wait, so I guess I'm going to be the one that celebrates my Jupiter return. But gate 12 is about, it's in the throat chakra. For those that don't know, it's in the throat center, and it's the gate of caution. Um, and it can be quite melancholy at times because it feels so much. And it's interesting that it's in the throat, and we talk about feeling, but from the throat. But it's this feeling of, should I speak or not? Right? Because sometimes those that have the gate 12 can really transmit some really important information. I call it the channel, the gate of the channel. And it's so, when do you know when to speak and or not? And it can really, really affect the larynx. So if you have the gate 12, and if you're in the lower expression, or if you haven't done healing, and then we're talking about the larynx, and you're using your larynx, you're using that to activate your vagus nerve, how do you know, like if you're getting a correct yes or no, right? And so it's really interesting when you're saying, like, you've tracked so much. I love that you track. I track the moon, I track my cycles, I track. I have the gate 5. I track everything to learn about my own cycles, because I'm not emotionally defined, although through the transits I mostly am. But I would love to hear about your experience through the gate 12.
Well, it's interesting. I'm glancing at your chart. We both have the gate 12 hanging, consciously defined, but your throat is undefined and my throat is defined. And I have two other gates defined in my throat, the 31 hanging, and which is my conscious Mars, which is also, and my 20 is my unconscious Sun, as well as my unconscious Mars, and my Chiron, and my Uranus opposition. Uranus will be in gate 20 when it's in my opposition. So I the I have a lot with my throat that has been very challenging. I struggle, like I said, I struggle with being clear enough or feeling like people like hear and understand me. And I tend to, I think, from a not self place of not wanting to be burned at the stake because I didn't say something or explain it clearly enough, I tend to over explain, and that's also not self, I think, driven by my open will. Like really trying, like I'm just so trying so hard to not be misheard because there's been so many times where people do not hear the literal words coming out of my mouth. And I'm like, I am being so point blank, clear, literal with my words. There's no euphemism. There's no second meaning. There's no other intention other than just, I'm just trying to tell you this thing. and and then they don't hear it, and then they screw up, and then somehow it's my fault. And it just like it drives me bonkers. So the gate 12, what I've been just feeling from it as an evolution into my later half of life is I'm still practicing and working on it, but yes, getting better at just speaking less and really waiting for the invitation. I've been trying to be kind of like a projector a little bit, you know? And here's something else I want to say about the throat. This year has been a big throat year for me. I've created a workshop called Reclaim Your Authentic Voice. I've done a demo of it with the retreat group that I did, and I really liked. They liked it. I liked it a lot. It's cool. Um, all but I think 3 gates in the throat are all projected channels. So it doesn't matter. Like I keep telling people, it doesn't matter if it's defined or undefined. It doesn't matter if you're a mani-gen or a manifestor or a projector or reflector or a generator. 90% of the time, we all need to be waiting to be asked to share our insight, our input, our big idea, uh, our advice, our help. All those energies are in the throat. We all need to wait and just spend more time being the observer, right? We're all evolving towards the rightness, as Rob was saying, right? Like we're all evolving towards being the observer riding in the vehicle, not not the not the one driving it or pulling the vehicle along, right? So I feel like gate 12 for me is very much that energy of being more of the observer, and it fights with my 2034 and my 2010 channels because those are two I have all but one of the integration circuitry gates. I don't have 57, but I got all the rest. And it's all being pushed along by my big ass emotional wave. So the 12 is always trying to pull me back in that north node placement of just wait, just breathe, and and in a more literal sense, I've been getting this like tug towards breath work, in general, being that, whether I'm supposed to be teaching it or just doing it more, it's interesting. Whenever I've done breath work, facilitated by, somebody in a session or in a group, it is powerful, but I do find that there's something missing at the end. Like I feel like there's not really actually good integration of what comes up in most senses, and that's why I like the EFT, because I'll go after a session on my own, and I'll use EFT to then integrate what came up, what emotions came up, what scenario, what memory, what trauma, and then use the EFT to process it and move through it. I feel like the breath work is really helpful for, that intense transformational breath work. It's really helpful for bringing up what wants to be unstuck, but I feel like it shouldn't just end there, because it's just now it's up. It's like I don't know, maybe similar to like talk therapy where you've talked about it and you've found the thing, but then now what? And then oh, the hour's up. So anyways, yeah, gate 12, breath work, and using my voice in this really creative way with like my podcast and things like that, where I feel like it almost kind of like lets the steam off, lets the pressure off the throat a little bit by using my voice in this podcast way. It relieves some of that energy that's wanting to flow out of it all the time, so that in more social and interpersonal scenarios I can lay back a little bit more. And the podcast isn't the only way. I've also been I was just before this, I've been playing with recording my own like mantra songs and like meditative kind of songs using my voice and different instruments I have and GarageBand, and just playing and having fun with it. And that feels like a really cool way of expressing myself, where I don't need anybody else. I don't need, like, my husband and I play music together, and that's wonderful and I love it. And I've played in bands before, and I love playing music with other people, but this is something that's very, very, it's just me. And it feels really cool to do that, and it definitely lights me up. So, yeah. Does that answer your question?
It does. And actually, I'm grateful that you brought up breathwork, because that's so important with gate 12. And I've been doing breathwork now for 10 years and studying deeply with holotropic, Wim Hof, but also the parasympathetic, because I can tell now right away when my energy starts to burn out, because I'm shallow breathing. I'm not taking deep enough breaths, because when you're sitting in a chair and you're working, you're not taking those deep breaths. And I could start feeling my throat be like, okay, here we go. And so then I know, okay, I need to go into breath work. So I do breath work almost every day, but it's not always that circle, holotropic, cyclical. A lot of times it's box breathing. Sometimes it's, really slow, deep breaths. Like, there's so many different types of breath work that we can do. But to me, breath is life. Breath is life. And so very, very important for us, using our voice, but also understanding our energy. And so as a mental health worker, we're taught, when people are having anxiety or panic attacks or whatnot, it's because they're shallow breathing. They're not breathing with their whole body. And so really coming back to that breath to really integrate our entire body and get more life into our body, so we're not so space cadet. I love the conundrum, like listening to you speak and talk, and listening to the conundrum of the gate 29 and being a man, Jen, and you having so much waiting energy and divine timing energy, because gate 29, I created a course called Half-Ass to Hell Yes. And it really talks about how I call the sacral in feminine archetypes, I call the sacral the prostitute, because a lot of times we say yes when we really mean no. And that takes us out of integrity, and that doesn't feel good. And then we don't have the energy for the hell yeses, right? And we tend to end up half-assing those things that we said yes to in the moment when we really didn't want to. But there is something about gate 29. There's a few gates, but we'll talk about gate 29. Gate 29, people that have it in their charts, and especially with the fifth line, can tend to play small, can tend to hide out, because it's scary to be seen. And for a lot of fifth line, it's scary to be fully seen, right? Fully seen of themselves. And they're so used to the projection. They're so used to having that projection that they tend to hide out behind that projection, and they tend to hide out with their commitments and whatnot. And so when a fully embodied woman, steps in to claiming, her sacral, and start really working with what it is that she wants to spend her precious life energy on. And once again, what a conundrum being a manifesting generator, being multi-passionate. What do you say yes to? But it's these beautiful conundrums that we get to learn so much more about ourselves through, right? It is that push and pull. It is that friction. It is that gate 59. It is that friction that really allows us to learn as the observer more about ourselves. And a lot of times it is in hindsight, but it's through those patterns that we start to see the emergence of the true self. What do you think about that?
Mm. Can you ask it in a yes or no question?
Does that resonate with you?
My brain was just rolling around. Yeah, I'm still in it. I'm still unraveling a lot of it. And sometimes I'm like, well, maybe I am a generator. I'm like, maybe I should just do this thing one step at a time, take it, and it's actually kind of like subtly under the surface is I'm practicing bringing myself back to this idea of one step at a time, commitment, commitment and devotion is a long con. It's a long-term game, right? I'm also fascinated by when Richard Rudd's work, when he talks about the 7-year cycle with the gate 29 in particular. I've had quite a few 7-year cycles. I'm actually coming up at the end of this year will be the 7-year anniversary of I have a residential house cleaning business. I've operated pretty much as a solopreneur um, for most of that time. And the knowledge of this 7-year cycle has had me, and I've been wanting out of it for a while and trying not to force it or push it. And every time I'm ready to rip it off like a band-aid, all of a sudden something really beautiful happens with it, or I get a handful of new clients that are paying me more, and their houses are expansive to me, and they're these beautiful, and they're also business people, and I get to learn from them and things like that. And so then I'm like, okay, I guess I can hang on a little bit longer. And then this year we're trying to buy a house, so I can't stop the thing that makes me the most money right now, because that's what's gonna buy this house, right? So I'm approaching the end of this 7-year cycle with this business, and I've been wanting to be rid of it for a while, but now I'm feeling like if I'm gonna recommit to this, something needs to change about it. And it is showing me these glimmers of how it might want to evolve. Um, and I've been averse to doing certain things like filing for an LLC. I've been sole proprietor with insurance for a long time because I didn't want to give into it. I didn't want to like finally say, yeah, this is my path. Um, but if I made an LLC or made an S corp, both my husband and I, we do stuff with properties. I do the inside, he does the outside, you know. And yeah, we've been talking about actually joining forces, making an S corp and making a family property management company, which would, I mean, my 10th house is in Taurus. I feel like that makes a lot of freaking sense too. I'm like, so it's been hard because some of the things that, when I went all in on this business a couple, like 3 years ago, I finally said, you know what, I'm gonna just give into it, and I'm gonna give it everything I've got. And I doubled my income, and it was great. And, not that income's everything, but man, it sure helps, right? So, and then when I stepped back, but I don't know, it's the commitment thing is, you know what I really want? This is my retirement plan, is to move to California, or Massachusetts, or wherever there's a Buddhist monastery that has a book bindery. I'm just gonna go do that, because the monk life is really appealing. Is really appealing, and I often call that back to that 29.5 is like, yeah, at the end of the day, I just want to be devoted to something, and living in late stage capitalism in the midst of a huge evolutionary shift, as someone who just wants to be free, is really hard. And freedom is probably my biggest, greatest value. And so the energy of commitment often feels contradictory to the value of freedom. Uh, I just got
Yes.
married. I just got married to my husband in September of last year, and I never thought I would. I never thought I would get married in my entire adult life. I just didn't It didn't feel like something that felt good to me until him. And he, it and we've been together for 7 years. Like that 7 year cycle. The last band I played with, I was with that band for 7 years. Um, there's a number of things where this 7 year commitment is really interesting, but it sometimes it does take that long. It does take that long, and then all of a sudden things just they can explode or implode in a good way or a bad way. But that 7 year cycle is very, very prominent and distinct in my experience. I feel like I'm rambling now, but yeah.
uh, it's interesting because the 29.5 is uh, is my Saturn,
Hmm.
and my sun is my Saturn return baby, because I'm an Aquarius. I do not like commitments. Now, this is really funny. So both you and I, our incarnation cross is in Aquarius, Leo, Scorpio, and Taurus. Correct?
Hmm.
So I call it the fixed cross, right? We are stubborn. We do not like change. However, we are amazing places for people to have transfer. We create spaces for transformation. We create a home for transformation, because that's just who we are. And so my son, he came. This is so interesting. I wasn't supposed to be able to have kids. Just medically, for reasons, I wasn't supposed to be able to have kids. And so I told, my grandma's like, you're going to have a baby when you're 27. And I said, I can't have any babies, grandma. Like, and she said, well, I'm 27, you're 27, he's going to be 27. And so, because my grandma was born 1927, my birthday is January 27th. So, uh, so it happens, I get pregnant when I'm 27 years old, which is a complete fluke, because I've really only dated one person in my entire life, and we were kind of like, anyway,
What
long
is
story
the
short,
six line
long
thing?
story short, oops. Uh, but my son wasn't supposed to be born until February the 11th, so after my 28th birthday. But my child, my Saturn return, my double Capricorn, was born on January 7th, a month before his due date.
Hmm.
And so he is my greatest teacher of devotion, of
Hmm.
commitment,
Hmm.
because I do not like to commit. Before I had him, I lived out of a suitcase and traveled. He is now 18. I'm moving, I'm making the plan to move out so that I can once again be a digital nomad. But he taught me what devotion was, because what greatest teacher for myself anyway is unconditional love of a child, and for a child. And so it's so interesting. There's a piece of luck when you go all in, when you
Right.
go all in, right? When you go all in. And I gotta tell you, I went all in with that child. As a single mom, that's what you have to do, right? And he has been my greatest teacher. He has been my greatest teacher, my double Capricorn, right angle cross of penetration.
I think that's also why like I really enjoy making the mantra music because it's devotional music,
Hmm.
the bhakti.
Hmm. The
Um,
bhakti.
yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah.
And
And
I
it's interesting too, because with the 29, and that devotion and that commitment, um, it's not a small thing. It's a big thing, right? It's a big thing when you look in hindsight. It tends to be a really, really big thing that we might not know in the moment. But then when you look back, you realize what a big thing that commitment was.
yeah. Yeah, the idea of the bhakti to the shakti, with the 29 to the 30 that, again Richard Rudd talks about. It's I feel like the difficulty with that is compounded again with that the 5 line in there where I've been accused of being selfish, when I'm like, no, I'm just devoted to me. I'm devoted to myself because if I'm not, nobody else is going to be, and not in a way that's true and authentic and helpful. And there's some hesitation there, but that's something else I've been swirling around in a way of really wanting to create an offering that is really transformative and helpful, and I'm feeling called to like integrating boundary work with the human design, and the name of the program, like I have the name of in also typical management fashion, I have the name of the program before I've even designed it, but something along the lines of divinely selfish. And this is where this ties in the toxic patriarchy piece, is that one of the number one things we get conditioned away from is taking care of ourselves first. you know that 50-27 energy, the 59-6 energy. It's here to save to promote the tribe, but you can't take care of tribe if you have not taken care of yourself, right?
Mm-hmm.
um
My course, I do have a course like that. It's called Take Up Space.
mhm, mhm,
Because it's literally, you got to take care of yourself first.
yeah,
And you got to take up that space in your own body, and your own stories and your own empowerment before you can be serving that to other people. So I love how similar, a lot of messages that are coming up now for the collective, for the greater good. And there is a sense of we've been taught, we've been conditioned to take care of other people first, right? Like, and that's not really sustainable. And if you want to be sustainable, you have to take care of it. And it's not selfish at
yeah,
all
yeah,
to want to be sustainable. So I want to thank you so much for sharing your journey of human design, and the way that you have been experiencing it and playing with it, and the way that you've been really exploring what your cycles are, your energy, and whatnot, and how beneficial it is to everybody that you serve, that you commit to, that you share your message with. It's so important. I want to thank you for that.
yeah. Thank you for giving me some wonderful things to respond to and let my 2034 ramble its way around in its circles.
Well, it's good for you to take up space and have that space to do so. If anybody wants to get a hold of you, wants to work with you, how can they find you?
Yeah, the best way to find me is on Instagram at Anna with Intention, or come listen to my podcast, which is called Music by Design. It's on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and Amazon Music. And I feel like this project is really the epitome of being a Manny Gen with a lot of different life experiences, because it is kind of pulling a lot of different things in together and making it into something truly unique. If you want to work with me, right now my books are not open as we are getting into the busy time of year. So let me just tell you real quick all the different things that I do. Okay. So I do human design readings. I do. I'm a quantum alignment system practitioner, certified with Karen Curry Parker's program. So I do like narrative rewriting, and so basically, it's basically deconditioning. Like, if you want to know how the heck do I decondition, I do that. I help you do that. Super powerful work. So outside of the human design realm, I also am a folk musician. I play the mandolin with my husband, who plays guitar, and we sing. Um, I run my residential house cleaning business, and I'm branching out into short-term property management, like through Airbnb and furnished finders. I have a few clients through that. And my husband and I, with a third partner, we started a flower farm last year, and that's where we got married. So we basically created the space where we got married last year, which was really cool. And then this year, now we're trying to expand into growing some new things and doing wholesale growing of sunflowers and zinnias and lysianthus and different things like that. So being that we're getting ramped up in the nice time of year here in upstate New York, I just am like, I can't even entertain doing readings. It's all I can do to just maintain my podcast for the next couple of months. And we're trying to buy a house. So life is very jam-packed. We have a 1-year-old German Shepherd puppy who also requires lots of energy and attention. So I think that's all like the main things. There's always like something else that likes to pop into the mix. And um, yeah, so I do a lot of things. So if you do want to work with me and you're just like desperate to work with me, or if you want to be a guest on my podcast, go listen to some episodes. And if you are a musician or you are like so into a certain artist or band and want to be on the podcast, just reach out and let me know. A DM on Instagram, or you can email me, annawithintention@gmail.com. I have a website, but it is sorely out of date, and I've not been able to log in to update it. So I'm just gonna let it lapse eventually. So don't go to my website. Um, yeah, podcast or Instagram are the best two places.
Wow, I'm exhausted just listening to you.
Me too.
Well, thank you so much, Anne, for being on the show. And I can't wait to now record your side.
Yeah, totally.
All right. Bye, everyone.